Yeah, did you hear that?
I did.
All right. Well, hello, hello, hello. I've been wanting to do an interview with you, Matt, for a long time. You're part of like what I would like to call like the big three. There's three record labels that are putting out music of Christian heavy metal, past, present, and future.
Yep.
I'll care about. And so I think you're the oldest guy doing this type of work, and wanted to start with you first. And so let's imagine that we're a news crew. We're coming into your office here and we're asking you to tell us what you do. Show us around if you want, kind of describing wise, and just let us know what you do.
Well, basically, for m most of the years I've done this, I had like a storage facility, like a large one. Like the last time in the last like 6, 7 years, it was just an old jewelry building, like where they sold jewelry, and then they left, and then I rented it. And the bad thing was it had an upstairs and a downstairs, and the downstairs is real tight, so carrying massive boxes up and down the steps was no party. And like I was just having stuff delivered to my house, like on pallets and stuff, and then I'd have to load it in my truck and then take it, and it was just a disaster. So, and plus, doing shipping out of my house, it started to take over for several years, and so I finally broke down, and I got a 3,000 square foot place in the business district in Quincy, and it's great because now I can get pallets and stuff delivered. I've got a garage door that opens up. It's basically a giant garage that I just had like $10,000 worth of shelving built in there and stuff, and it's just great. So I've got like an open area where mail and UPS people have a code. They can get the stuff. I can just leave it there. It can be picked up without fear of being stolen, without fear of like things getting wet or snowed on or anything. Living in the Midwest, you never know what's going to happen. So, but I do have shelving throughout the whole garage, and I have apartments that live above me. But other than that, it's not a big deal. So when I need to find stuff, I pretty much have it organized. As opposed to my house, it was like, I wonder what pile this is in. Now it's like, oh, I know it's in that pile in that room. So it's still not super well organized, but I do have some people that help me. And so every morning I get up, I have an exercise routine I like to do to try to stay healthy and be healthy. And then I come in to the shop around 7:15, make some coffee, eat a protein bar, drink some coffee, and then I take a look at what people ordered off of eBay and Amazon, and then I take a look at what they ordered off of Boone's Overstock, and I just start shipping. In the meantime, I also look at different things like artists that I'd like to license, that I'd like to contact, that we'd like to do some reissues of stuff. And, like you said, I've been at it a long time, so I have a long history. It doesn't seem very long ago I came across my first Heaven's Metal magazine. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like manna from heaven, like better than manna from heaven. I would forego food to back then to read Heaven's Metal magazine. And so a lot of those bands I get a chance to talk to a US person that's connected to Jerusalem today. And I got an update on how Ulf is doing, and you know talking to them about possibly working together in the future for some more releases and reissues of their stuff. We've been talking to some older bands. We got a big one in the pipe. I don't want to name it, but let's just say they put out 7 releases. 6 were cassette only,
Uh,
and they had a masterful guitarist who died about, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. I can't remember when, but you probably know who I'm talking about. And he was unbelievable guitarist, great metal, searing stuff, should have been on big labels, never were, but I could never find him because he died and I couldn't find his family. But I finally got a hold of the family with the help of Chris Gatto. So
awesome. I've seen this artist live. I finally figured out who you're talking about.
really,
Yeah, Cornerstone
oh yeah,
89.
did they play Cornerstone?
They
Oh my
did.
God.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh wow.
That was awesome.
Yeah,
So, I might be asking similar questions as we get
that's all right.
started here. Are you done? You want to keep going? Just tell us more.
No, I mean,
Okay.
ask
So,
away.
did you ever dream you would be a record company executive, if you can call yourself that? And how did you get here?
Well, you know what? It's as humble of beginnings as you could possibly expect. I did not come from anything of means. My parents were divorced, and both of the parents I lived with were on the poor side of things. And and so, we ended up going to Christian school. And that's how I really got into Christian music, was because I went to a church that said, hey, you really shouldn't be listening to secular music. And I don't prescribe to that kind of thinking now, but I still love Christian music. I still love the artists and stuff. And so, it's just part of my DNA. That's the stuff I grew up on that I love. But that's how I got into really looking for that type of cutting edge Christian music stuff and hunting it out and seeking it out, going to Christian bookstores every chance I got, and used shops looking for that stuff, and pouring through the magazines. And so, um, when I got a little older, I got into college and seminary in the 90s, seminary in the 90s, and I noticed that people were doing these little classified ads in the back of magazines like CCM, Heaven's Metal, and stuff. It'd be like, send a self-addressed stamp envelope for a list, and it was like, Steve Scott and some of those guys. And so I would just throw in a self-addressed stamped envelope. I'd get it, I'd pour through, I'd buy their stuff, and then I didn't ever have any money. So I thought, well, I'm gonna buy and sell so I have money to support my Christian music habit. And so I started putting together a list, and I started putting in those little classified ads and selling stuff through the mail. And I had a buddy that taught me how to kind of go around and look for on sale stuff that you could flip for a higher price. And after a while, I just sort of built up enough that I had a pretty good little business going on called Rugged Cross Connections.
Oh, yeah.
And it was all right. We did a good, but at that time I went into ministry, and I was like, man, I don't have time to be a pastor and ship out like all these individual orders. It'd be better for me to put out releases and have, back then, people say, hey, I'd like 50 copies of the new Mustard Seeds album, or something like that. It'd be like, man, that's a lot better to ship out 50 at one time than 50 individual orders. It's hard to keep up with that. So at that time, I knew what was collectible. By the time, the late 90s came along, and I got connected with a guy uh, with a distribution company that helped me get started and did some distribution, and then I ended up getting some family Christian stores distribution, and so I had other opportunities, and I really liked doing that because it didn't take, it was work. I got to dip my toes in it and be involved with the artists, and get albums that I thought were really critical to the heart and soul of Christian rock and metal history, that maybe weren't as flamboyant as like Petra or Whiteheart, or well known, but to me, they were still really important. And I really liked being part of those reissues and getting those out. My first reissue was Charisma, Rock the World, which I still think is a fantastic album. But, back then nobody was like thinking, I wonder if Rock the World's ever going to come out on CD. So had no idea what I was doing. Somehow it turned out great for a first release.
Awesome.
It was great. But anyway, later on, I ended up having to do the direct sales because that's just sort of the way the direction of everything went. And with distribution, your profit margin is so minuscule that it's really hard to stay afloat. But if you do those direct sales, direct to consumer, you have more income to absorb, and so you can actually do more with the releases. You have more cash flow that you can front bands for, if because a lot of them, they might require that, or to license stuff, you have to put money up front a lot of times. So um, I was basically forced to go back into direct sales, and that's when I started Boone's Overstock.com, and that's how we support all those releases that we put out, as well as trading with, some of our other partners and stuff.
That's really cool. I remember Rugged Cross Connections, and I think you did with 6-page column ads with the rounded corner frame, and had a list of all the releases and a
I think, yeah, I did do some of those. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, they did all right. They did all
Right
right.
on. That's fun. So explain to me what a licensing deal is. How do you go about that, and what does that entail?
Well, it kind of just depends. Like it's basically licensing deals are very similar to relationships that you have. Once you have a relationship and you build trust, then they get easier normally. But it kind of just depends on who it is. Just like your friends are quirky and you're quirky and I'm quirky, like places that you license from, they're quirky too. And sometimes they can be really protective, sometimes they can be overwhelmed and not want to deal with you. Like sometimes to license some of the more difficult ones that I've licensed, it took a year and a half to pull off one single deal. One deal, a year and a half. And that doesn't include the ones that I tried for like 3 years and I'd get an email back 6 months later. Then I'd email them back right away with three questions. They would email me back 7 months later answering one of the questions, until I basically just gave up. And then there's bands that I don't know, they just don't want their stuff done. Like I have a few bands that no matter what I do, they want more. There's one particular band that is maybe the most desirable reissue in the history of Christian metal. I've gone to them like 7 times. I have acquiesced to their ridiculous demands every single time.
Who wouldn't?
And
I think I
every
know who you're
time
talking
they're
about.
like, I think we can do more. I think if we do it ourselves, we can get more. But then they never do.
They never do
They
they?
never do. So it's really frustrating. So people
Yeah.
don't know how frustrating it is, or worse, not even worse, not worse, but it's also frustrating is like, and I want to say I am good friends with Stryken now. Stryken and I, we are tight. Dale Hopkins, amazing. We have a great, but I've tried to get Stryken reissued for so many years, and then one day out of nowhere, I find out, oh yeah, it's coming out on Girder Records. And I'm like, what? I just tried for like 8 years to get that reissue. Same with Prodigal, and Prodigal ended up doing their own, and then I did reissues after that. But you never know. And now like and fans might not know this, but Greg Hayes from Girder and Bill Bafford from Roxx, we're like super tight. So like no, there's no band gonna be like competing against us because like if they're working on a deal, all they got to do is say, "Hey, I'm working the deal. Greg and I back off." Or Bill and I back off or whatever. So there's no pitching us against it like to see who can get the best deal. It's like we're not going to step on each other's toes.
That's funny. Man, that one band, if they would only really realize they have a reason to rock. And gosh, most desirable reissue of Christian heavy metal. That's right.
I'm embarrassed to tell you how much I told them I'd give them for that one release. I'm
Yeah.
embarrassed. I can't even believe I was willing to do it. But I was like, man, fans are gonna like this, and I want to do this for them. And every time they
Dang.
come back like, no, we can if we do it ourselves, we can make more money. And I'm just like, think of the fans, people. You got
Yeah.
money in your hand.
Do it. Do it. You can't be like Jerry Jones. He's gone on record on camera and said, it's almost embarrassing how much I would pay and what I would do to go to another Super Bowl. And if people know that figure, it
All
would
he
be
has to
embarrassing.
do is let someone else be the GM for the team and stay out of their business. So he ain't willing to do that. I know that.
Well, changing the subject, uh, I know that like the Christian music industry, especially Christian rock, but the Christian music industry entirely is terrible about the value of the back catalog. In the mainstream, bands like Pink Floyd, Jethro Tull, Led Zeppelin sell platinum every single year if you take their whole catalog. But the Christian music industry, as soon as it costs more to warehouse that
Oh
CD,
yeah.
it's out of print and they sell them off to a junk dealer and
Yep.
it's no longer available and the fans lose out because there's no value. So you're
That
providing a
is
real service.
that is true. I remember in the 90s, mid 90s, um stuff like Love War came out, and I felt like it was still a new release. And all of a sudden I would see, oh wait, it's being discontinued.
Really?
Yeah, like maybe it's like 4 years old,
Wow.
4.5 years old, and all of a sudden like you can't special order it, you can't find it, and I was just like at that point in the mid 90s, that's when I realized like the shelf life for Christian music was really minuscule because once it was no longer a brand new release, they wanted only a series of brand new releases. That's all they wanted,
Mhm.
you know.
I don't know the reason behind that. Maybe it's because the people in charge of the retail or the wholesale or the machinery, they don't care. They don't have a passion for it like you and I do. Like we'll talk about a
Yeah,
band like
probably.
Rage of Angels to bring up someone we haven't talked about yet.
Yeah,
We
we haven't
love
even
that
mentioned them
band.
yet.
Uh,
Yeah.
but some guy in a suit in a office somewhere, he's just looking at numbers and whatnot. But there's a real value to some of those projects, and just it touched our lives in ways that go deeper than dollars and cents.
Well, it's also a different world too. Like if I don't think it was a great system for sales success, where the majority of those Christian releases were in something literally called a Christian bookstore.
Mhm.
And you're supposed to sell Christian rock and metal in a Christian bookstore that was more likely to have like somebody's 75-year-old grandma go in it than like a 14-year-old skater kid, so it was tough when those things stopped selling. I mean, I don't know that it was a great system because I just don't know. I don't know. I didn't run any of those Christian bookstores, but I just imagine like in Macomb, Illinois, a town of 20,000, they had a Christian bookstore of like, a handful of bookshelves with CDs and cassettes on it. And, if the Love War or MCGG or um, a Jerusalem cassette or Sweet Comfort Band didn't sell in the first 6 months, I mean, is it going to sell ever?
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
And I just plus you have to have all these agents to go out and pitch these new releases and stuff. And I don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to be too harsh, but I will say as a fan of the music, I was very discouraged that basically when it's no longer a new release, they were going out of print.
yeah. And I guess the labels had a return policy that expired in X number of days or a year. I don't know, but
Well, and then you got to start paying things like because we have distribution now, we have a lot of control over it, but you know, we only send in a limited number of units because if they've been over there after like say 30, 90 days, I think then you start paying long-term storage fees. And if you have three, four, 500 different titles there, those fees can really add up and you really need to pay attention. Plus, a lot of those distribution companies back in the 90s seemed to go out of business all the time, like Spectra and stuff. And it left record labels in a real pinch because a lot of times they didn't get paid and they didn't get the product.
yeah, that's why Blonde Vinyl died.
Yep.
Spectre was out of the picture. So, what there's so many things to talk about. The business is so fascinating for some people. I guess it can be real easy to be geeky about music business. Are you involved with are some of your titles with Retroactive or your other labels? And I want you to bring them all up. Are some of your titles in Targets and in some retail stores, and you're working with wholesale distributors too? Tell me about all that.
Yeah. I mean, basically, got my hands. Most of us that do this kind of did it from the ground up. So we didn't start out as a record label executive. We just sort of built I just sort of built a small buy sell trade music business through the mail. And it just sort of evolved into that. And, at one point in 2015, I started a store envy store that I had for something else. And I decided to do blood good pre-orders on it. And then I'm like, oh, well, I guess people will buy these. So that's how I started an online store. That's why it's called Boone's Overstock, which isn't the greatest name. It was for something else and it just built into that. So what was the question?
So, like Do you have deals or is some of your product in retail stores
Oh
like a
yeah.
Target and are you doing
Oh
wholesale
yeah.
distribution?
Well, at some point, Girder and I were talking. We're like, man, we need some help. We just, it's hard to press up 500 units of CD or vinyl and sell all of them. It's just really hard. So we just realized we needed help. There's much more to it than just putting it out, listing it on Amazon, listing it on eBay, and emailing out to customers and putting it on social media. And so, I just reached out to one of the major distributors. We wanted one that could get us into Record Store Day, and that was
Okay.
really helpful because we loved Record Store Day and we liked the idea of putting our product there. So especially we sort of did a joint label called Limited Run Vinyl,
Yeah.
and it has his Girder music on it as well, or Girder Records, and mine has Brutal Planet or Bombworks or Retroactive on there, but it has the limited run logo on there. And we thought it'd do really good to put those products in Record Store Day. And so that was the real impetus behind it, was we wanted to get in Record Store Day, but we also had a huge back catalog and a bunch of cool titles to put out. And I'd been reissuing stuff from like Metal Blade Records and Century Media Records, which I thought I needed a wider, more mainstream platform to move that stuff.
Hmm.
And so, we built relationships with them. We learned the ins and outs of what it meant to have distribution, and it's always a learning process. You have to really be willing to learn and be flexible and listen and follow directions and work hard, really hard. But yeah, we do have stuff in distribution. You can find it in Walmart.com, Targets, pretty much any record store can, call up their distributor and get our product, which
That's
I think is
cool.
pretty cool
That's
because most
amazing.
time our stuff has not been widely available.
Yeah, you've really bridged a gap. So I think Record Store Day happens twice a year, if I'm not incorrect.
Yep.
One's coming up. So at Record Store Day, would I be able to go into Waterloo Records in Austin or Grimey's in Nashville or Atomic Fetus in Minneapolis and find some of your albums on vinyl or
You
CD?
probably could. I've been lucky I've had like about I've only been I've only been shut out, I think twice out of like about 8 or 9 times. This is one time I've been shut out, was this upcoming one. I got told no, which was frustrating because I had Glass Harp live at Carnegie Hall where they had turned it down. They took something else, but they turned Glass Harp down, and they're like, but if you submit it again, we'll probably take it. And I was like, no problem. So I waited to submit it, and then they're like, we're passing on everything this time. And I was like, no. I was like
Wow.
so excited for Glass Harp, and Phil Keggy was super excited to have it. And so we're probably still going to put that out, but it was kind of a bummer that we missed out on that. But yeah, I mean, if you look up our titles, they're all mainstream stuff. We haven't gotten any Christian stuff into Record Store Day at all, but
Oh, really?
we have had some really good stuff.
Hmm.
Girder tried to get some in there. Like they turned down some really big name Christian titles that I think would have sold like wildfire, but
Wow.
they're they're very difficult to deal with. Record Store Day is, and once you get accepted, then it's fine. But I don't understand what gets accepted and what gets turned down because it doesn't always make any logical sense to me.
Is that like a middleman that does that, or do the individual stores buy it?
I think the way it works is stores basically put their orders in for what they want, but there's only a limited number of units. So they might say they want 20 copies of the new Metallica Record Store Day release, but they might get one or two.
Hmm.
This just depends on how it's rated. If it's like a regional one, or there's just different ways that I can't remember all the details,
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, they just put an order for what they want, and fortunately, basically all my stuff is sold out, all the time. So that's the way you want it. You want to just sell through and get your payday, but it does take you. I mean, when you license the stuff, you have it made, it's accepted, and then it sells on record store day, it's about a 8 or 9 months process. So you have a lot of money tied up
Hmm.
by the time you get reimbursed for that.
So I want to ask you a question is how does it feel in you in your heart between taking a license or reissue of some classic album like a Jerusalem Live in His Majesty's Service? How do you compare the feelings you have for that release versus a new title like Hope by Mad at the World, which came out a few years ago? How is that different, and what do you do differently for each one of those?
Uh, I mean, basically for me, I do this because I want to be supportive of the bands. Like I've worked with some artists, and they're like breaking off and doing some solo stuff, and then we talk about the best way to work with them. But if I think that they can make more money, like if they have a way to sell their music direct to consumer, I just tell them. I was like, I think you're doing the right thing right now, and you're going to be better off reaching your goals by selling what you can because you have people that'll buy those from you. You won't make as much money from me. I might be able to sell a few more units, but you're going to do better financially if that's their goal. Sometimes they don't want to do that. And they want me to take care of all the hassles with shipping out and making the product and stuff. But I really just try to be supportive of our artists. They worked really hard, most of them, some of them sacrificed, 401ks. They maybe didn't have the benefit of having health insurance, who knows what. So I think just showing them that somebody cares about their music and that we want to do what's work with them to find out what their goals are and what's best. That's probably the best approach that we have.
Cool. So what do you have on the horizon? What's coming out? What do we need to know about?
Oh, I should have looked at that list. Hmm.
We've stumped Matt Hunt.
What do I have coming out? Let's see. Let me take a look. Let me just take a look.
Okay.
Oh, we do. Well, at manufacturing right now, we do have King's X, Please Come Home, Tapehead, and Manic Moonlight vinyl, which I think are pretty cool. We're gonna have some Jacob's Dream vinyl, the self-titled and Drama of the Ages. And I think that Quiet Room was actually covered by Heaven's Metal for a bit. So
Yeah.
we have some Quiet Room coming, and then let's see more on the Christian side.
And Please Come Home, Mr. Bulbous has some incredible songs on like Move Me and Move Me Part Two and oh gosh, Bittersweet.
You
Uh
know what? I will admit,
Amazing.
when Bulbous came out as an enormous King's X fan, I did not like it at all.
Really?
I was bummed by it. And then after we put out the gold disc reissue in 2020, it's one of my all-time favorite albums now. It's just lyrically and musically astonishing. I love it so much.
Yeah.
All right, we have a Screams of Chaos, two CD and DVD set coming out by the Genetic Warfare album, and
Wow.
then we're going to do that one on vinyl as well, and one that maybe a lot of people didn't know, but I'm sure you will, Doug. Narcissus New Wave Techno Homicide. Do you remember that one?
I do, yeah.
That is a an amazing, amazing hardcore album. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
My CD kept getting crushed because it had like a cardboard uh,
Yeah, it's
J
terrible.
sleeve
They
instead of
were terrible the
a
way they were
jewel
done.
case.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they were
Um,
awesome.
and then we've got let's see. We've got the Rex Carroll Band album. That was then. This is now coming out on vinyl and deluxe CD. Um, we've got all this Atomic Opera stuff coming out. Yeah. I can't wait for that. Atomic Opera, Gospel Cola. Alpha and Oranges on CD and vinyl, Penguin Dusk for Mad Men Only on CD and vinyl. And
Wow.
then I love Frank Hart from Atomic Opera's music. So we have a 4 CD set with his solo album Human Liturgy, Living Creatures Project, Fantastical Amazing Jesus Christmas, and then a rarely seen Love in Gray Broken Shadows CD is the
Ooh,
fourth bonus disc for that.
wow.
Yeah. And then we've got Mass New Birth Deluxe Edition CD and color vinyl for the first time. And that's like the 35th anniversary edition. No,
Wow.
40th anniversary edition. Triton Celestial Messenger with two bonus tracks on vinyl.
Mm.
And we've got Adam Again vinyl and CDs coming, as well as we just launched pre-orders for Swirling Eddies, which those pre-orders went ballistic. So
Did
I would
they?
like to thank all of the fans of Daniel Amos and Swirling Eddies.
Oh,
They
yeah.
stepped up to the plate. And also, I just want to point out we stepped into the Christian hip hop scene with SFC and Gospel Gangsta CD and vinyl reissues.
Yeah.
And I really want to thank all the fans that stepped up to make those very, very special releases. Those were successful. At least I think they were successful, and I'm really proud of those and that scene because they really hadn't had a lot of reissues or a lot of attention. So we're hoping to do more of those in the future too.
Cool. Thanks for doing that and hope you get much success there. I think hip hop has been largely ignored by a lot of the Christian music scene,
Yeah.
kind of unfairly because it's a street cred music scene
Yep.
that's big.
Yeah.
There's a different demographic, of course, in a lot
Yep.
of cases, but man, it's good art.
It is good art. Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
Are you pretty easy to find, I guess, but tell us where we can find you and uh stay in touch with you guys.
Well, my business Facebook page is Matthew Boone Hunt. It was like Matthew Retroactive, but apparently somebody reported me for having the wrong name, and I had to change it by Facebook standards, and so I had to put my first, middle, and last name, which is the name that Boone's Overstock is actually named after. So, if you want to look me up on Facebook, you can look me up Matthew Boone Hunt. But also, you can go to boonesoverstock.com, our store. And then there's also Retroactive Records, Bombworks, and Brutal Planet Facebook pages and Instagram too.
Nice. Well, from us music fans, thank you for doing what you're doing and keeping the music we love alive because without your efforts, we wouldn't be able to get a hold of some of this stuff. If our cassettes, you know, mutated into nothing or our CDs, some CDs go bad after a while.
They
And
do.
if the music's gone, there's no else to get it now. But thanks to you
Yeah.
guys, we can.
Oh, one other release that we're going to be doing was we have three Seventh Avenue releases coming out on CD and vinyl.
Right
I
on.
forgot about those. Those I'm very excited about.
Nice. Now, you and I have been talking about a secret deal, which I'm not going to reveal at this point, but hopefully that will get out there eventually.
Yes, I just need to find some time to organize my brain and figure out where it fits. But yes, I have not forgotten about it, and we will get something done soon. We're going to team up with Heaven's Metal and make some good things happen.
I understand. Well, thanks for your time today, Matt.
All right, thanks, Doug.
You betcha.
All right, bye bye.